This is a commentary on Isaiah, Part 9, F0239, chapters 34 to 38. The salvation of the Gentiles, beginning in chapter 34, verse 1. Draw near, O nations, to hear and hearken, O peoples. Let the earth listen and all that fills it, the world and all that comes from it. For the Lord is enraged against all the nations and furious against all their host. He has doomed them, has given them over for slaughter. Their slain will be cast out, and stench of their corpses shall rise. The mountains shall flow with their blood. All the host of heaven shall rot away, and the skies roll up like a scroll. All their hosts shall fall, as leaves fall from the vine, like leaves falling from the fig tree. For my sword has drunk its fill in the heavens. Behold, it descends for judgment upon Edom, upon the people I have doomed. The Lord has a sword, it is sated with blood, it is gorged with fat, with the blood of lambs and goats, with the fat of the kidneys of rams. For the Lord has a sacrifice in Bozrah, a great slaughter in the land of Edom. Wild oxen shall fall with them, and young steers with the mighty bulls. Their land shall be soaked with blood, and their soil made rich with fat. For the Lord has a day of vengeance, a year of recompense for the cause of Zion. And the streams of Edom shall be turned into pitch, and her soil into brimstone. Her land shall become burning pitch. Night and day it shall not be quenched, its smoke shall go up forever. From generation to generation it shall lie waste. None shall pass through it for ever and ever. But the hawk and the porcupine shall possess it, the owl and the raven shall dwell in it. He shall stretch the line of confusion over it, and the plummet of chaos over its nobles. They shall name it no kingdom there, and all its princes shall be nothing. Thorns shall grow over its strongholds, nettles and thistles in its fortresses. It shall be the haunt of jackals, an abode for ostriches. And wild beasts shall meet with hyenas, the satyr shall cry to his fellow. Yea, there shall be the night hag, a light, and find for herself a resting place. There shall the owl nest, and lay, and hatch, and gather her young in her shadow. Yea, there shall the kites be gathered, each one with her mate. Seek and read from the book of the Lord. Not one of these shall be missing, none shall be without her mate. For the mouth of the Lord is commanded, and his Spirit has gathered them. He has cast the lot for them, his hand has portioned it out to them with the line, and they shall possess it forever. From generation to generation they shall dwell in it. The intent of chapter 34. So also in Messianic prophecy through Isaiah to Hezekiah, number 157d. Isaiah 34 to 36 is concerned with the prophecy of the salvation of the Gentiles. We find Isaiah 35:3 mentioned in the New Testament in Hebrews 12, verses 11 to 12. The text in Isaiah 34 commences with the indignation of God against the nations and his dealing with them. This prophecy looks forward to the end of the age when the nations are given up to slaughter. The text in Isaiah and in 2 Kings must therefore be viewed in relation to its place in prophecy, as revealed to Isaiah. Hezekiah is in fact concerned with the future events of the activities of God in sending the Messiah for his purposes. The entire structure of Isaiah is in effect messianic over its entire length. Isaiah 34 commences with a message to the world, which is to the inhabited world and all nations. Verse 1, Hebrew Tibel. The indignation of Jehovah is on them. Verse 2. The utter destruction is in fact a devotion to destruction or being placed under a divine ban. Compare Bullinger, footnote 2. The text says the mountains shall be melted with their blood, which is hyperbole. Verse 3. The wrath of God is placed upon the nations, and they are to be put to the sword. Verses 5 and 6. They are sacrificed. Verses 6 and 7. In God's vengeance. Verse 8. The unicorns in verse 7 are the Re'emin, or rhinoceros. The surrounding nations are to be destroyed because of the controversy over Zion, as the final recompense of the vengeance of God. The lands will be made tohu and bohu, that's from verse 11. This is the time of the day of the Lord. The command is given to search the book of the Lord, and he has commanded, and none of the words of God will fail. He has commanded, and the Spirit will gather those for whom God has cast lot. He has divided the lands by line, and they will dwell there forever, verses 16 and 17. This is the messianic prophecy for the last days. You see the paper, The Day of the Lord in the Last Days, number 192. The structure of the text deals with God's zeal for Zion and its redemption. It is in this context that the subsequent chapters must be viewed. 34 verses 1 to 17. The conversion of Edom is the commencement of the absorption into Israel. And you see also Ezekiel chapters 38 to 39. Verse 4, the host of heaven are associated with the corruption of the nations as God's earthly enemies, 24-21. Verse 5, the destruction of Edom is used as an example of all the enemies of the kingdom of God exemplified by Israel, Jeremiah 49:7-22, as with all God's enemies, Obadiah 15:15. The sword of the Lord, see Ezekiel chapter 21. Sacrifice, Ezekiel 39:17-20. The animals are those of the sacrifices. That is not the intent of those to be sacrificed in Edom. They were brought into Judah in the 2nd century BC under John Hyrcanus. Verse 8, day, C13 verse 6, 27 verse 2. 34 verses 9 to 17, God's assault and after. 34:9-10, Edom suffers the punishment of Sodom and Gomorrah. 13 verse 19, Genesis 19 verse 24. Verse 11, it is as the primordial chaos. 34 verses 12-15, no kingdom there, thus the end of those opposing the plan of God, number 001A in Israel, numbers 001B and 001C, are to be brought to an end. The night hag, the storm demon, Lilith, said to inhabit abandoned places and wild animals, haunt its ruins. 13 verses 19-22. Verse 16, the book of the Lord, C4 verse 3. Chapter 35, verse 1. The wilderness and the dry land shall be glad, the desert shall rejoice and blossom like the crocus. It shall blossom abundantly and rejoice with joy and singing. The glory of Lebanon shall be given to it, the majesty of Carmel and Sharon. They shall see the glory of the Lord, the majesty of our God. Strengthen the weak hands and make firm the feeble knees. Say to those who are of a fearful heart, be strong, fear not. Behold, your God will come with vengeance, with the recompense of God. He will come and save you. Then the eyes of the blind shall be opened, and the ears of the deaf unstopped. Then shall the lame man leap like a hart, and the tongue of the dumb sing for joy. For waters shall break forth in the wilderness, and the streams in the desert. The burning sand shall become a pool, and the thirsty ground springs of water. The haunt of the jackals shall become a swamp, and the grass shall become reeds and rushes. And a highway shall be there, and it shall be called the holy way. The unclean shall not pass over it, and fools shall not err therein. No lion shall be there, nor shall any ravenous beast come up on it. They shall not be found there, but the redeemed shall walk there. And the ransomed of the Lord shall return and come to Zion with singing. Everlasting joy shall be upon their heads. They shall obtain joy and gladness, and sorrow and sighing shall flee away. The intent of chapter 35. Here we see Zion restored, 35 verses 1-10. The OARSV note says that the text with 34, 1-17 probably belonged originally to chapters 40-66, seemingly following the revisionist division of Isaiah. 35, 1 to 6a. All creation will see God's glory. The helpless exiles, feeble knees, will wait on God, and he will send for them to return to Zion. You see chapters 65 to 66 for that return. We see the declaration, re Lebanon, Carmel and Sharon, as we saw previously and again below. 35 verses 8 to 10. The holy way, through a land like paradise. 11 verses 6 to 9. They will come to Zion to sing the praises of God their deliverer. Once again, Messianic prophecy 157d. Isaiah 35 then goes on to declare that Lebanon and Carmel and Sharon shall see the glory of the Lord and the majesty of our God. This is messianic. The glory of the Lord is Messiah. Isaiah 35:3 is quoted in Hebrews 12:11 to 12, and that text refers directly to Messiah and the chastening he suffered for us. Isaiah 35:1 to 2 declares that the desert shall blossom like a rose, and the glory of Lebanon shall be given unto it, together with the excellence of Carmel and Sharon, and they will see the glory of the Lord, that is Jehovah, and the excellency of our God. Thus Messiah was to be in Judah and remain in Zion and return to Zion in the last days. We are told in verse 4 that he will come specifically to save us. The miracles he performed were to open the eyes of the blind and the ears of the deaf, and so that the lame should leap as a hart, and the dumb should sing. He performed these miracles in order to commence the calling of the church, which was to be watered by the Holy Spirit, covered in number 117, over 2,000 years. Thus Jehovah has declared that he will come with vengeance, and with the recompense of the one true God. We know from the Old Testament and New Testament texts that the entity that God will send is Messiah. We're specifically told that the ransomed of the Lord shall return and come to Zion with songs and everlasting joy upon their heads. They shall obtain joy and gladness, and sighing will flee away. This theme is then taken up in Isaiah 40, after the references to the theme of the Assyrian invasion, and it is in that context that the Assyrian invasion and return must be viewed. In the midst of this messianic declaration in Isaiah, and by comparison with 2 Kings, we then find we are confronted with the Assyrians besieging Jerusalem in the 14th year of Hezekiah. Sennacherib had besieged the fortified cities of Judah and took them, and finally besieged Jerusalem. The early period of Hezekiah is dealt with in 2 Kings 18, 1 to 12. It is important to read that section also. We see that Israel was taken away in the 6th year of Hezekiah. In the 14th year of Hezekiah, the Assyrians decided to destroy Jerusalem and transport Judah into captivity, as they had done to Israel at Samaria 8 years previously. As was the practice of the Assyrians, Israel was taken to the opposite ends of the empire, beyond the Araxes to the north, in what is now Georgia and Armenia. The significance of this event was that Judah would not have been identified, and the Messiah could not have been born in Judea when it was time for him to be incarnated in the Virgin as prophesied elsewhere in Isaiah 7:14, and Isaiah 37:22 also refers to the Virgin as the daughter of Zion, who has despised the Assyrian and mocked her. Isaiah 47:1 also deals with the virgin daughter of Babylon and prophesies against her, and says she will sit in the dust and grind and no longer be called the Lady of Kingdoms. In Isaiah 47:6 it is clearly stated that God is to give Judah into her hands and then deal with her. The text in Isaiah and in 2 Kings dealing with Hezekiah is prophetic and has nothing to do with that time, except that the second element of the prophecy deals with the return of the Assyrians, and they remain there in Assyria. Also, Messiah could not have come to the temple and fulfilled the prophecies as given to Isaiah if Assyria had removed Judah. Thus God decided to intervene, and he told Isaiah why and what the sign of the ministry would be. The sign of the Messiah's ministry was given by God to Isaiah and spoken to Hezekiah and recorded in both books as a dual witness to the commencement of the ministry. It is for this reason that so much effort was made to destroy the calendar and the Jubilee system by the later Pharisees and rabbis. Chapter 36, beginning in verse 1. In the 14th year of King Hezekiah, Sennacherib, king of Assyria, came up against all the fortified cities of Judah and took them. And the king of Assyria sent the Rabshakeh from Lachish to King Hezekiah at Jerusalem with a great army, and he stood by the conduit of the upper pool on the highway to the fuller's field. And there came out to him Eliakim, the son of Hilkiah, who was over the household, and Shebna, the secretary, and Joah, the son of Asaph, the recorder. And the Rabshakeh said to them, Say to Hezekiah, Thus said the great king, the king of Assyria, On what do you rest this confidence of yours? Do you think that mere words are strategy and powers for war? On whom do you now rely that you rebelled against me? Behold, you are relying on Egypt, that broken reed of a staff which will pierce the hand of any man who leans on it. Such is Pharaoh, king of Egypt, to all who rely on him. But if you say to me, We rely on the Lord our God, is it not he whose high places and altars Hezekiah has removed, saying to Judah and to Jerusalem, You shall worship before this altar? Come now, make a wager with my master, the king of Assyria. I will give you 2,000 horses if you are able on your part to set riders upon them. How then can you repulse a single captain among the least of my master's servants, when you rely on Egypt for chariots and for horsemen? Moreover, is it without the Lord that I have come up against this land to destroy it? The Lord said to me, Go up against this land and destroy it. Then Eliakim, Shebna, and Joah said to the Rabshakeh, Pray speak to your servants in Aramaic, for we understand it. Do not speak to us in the language of Judah within the hearing of the people who are on the wall. But the Rabshakeh said, Has my master sent me to speak these words to your master and to you, and not to the men sitting on the wall who are doomed with you to eat their own dung and drink their own urine? Then the Rabshakeh stood and called out in a loud voice to the language of Judah, Hear the words of the great king, the king of Assyria. Thus saith the king, Do not let Hezekiah deceive you, for he will not be able to deliver you. Do not let Hezekiah make you rely on the Lord by saying, The Lord will surely deliver us. This city will not be given into the hand of the king of Assyria. Do not listen to Hezekiah, for thus says the king of Assyria, Make your peace with me, and come out to me, then every one of you will eat of his own vine, and every one of his own fig tree, and every one of you will drink the water of his own cistern, until I come and take you away to a land like your own land, a land of grain and wine, a land of bread and vineyards. Beware lest Hezekiah mislead you by saying the Lord will deliver us. Has any of the gods of the nations delivered his land out of the hand of the king of Assyria? Where are the gods of Hamath and Arpad? Where are the gods of Sepharvaim? Have they delivered Samaria out of my hand? Who among all the gods of these countries have delivered their countries out of my hand, that the Lord shall deliver Jerusalem out of my hand? But they were silent and answered him not a word. For the king's command was, Do not answer him. Then Eliakim, the son of Hilkiah, who was over the household, and Shebna the secretary, and Joah the son of Asaph the recorder, came to Hezekiah with their clothes rent and told him the words of the Rabshakeh. Intent of chapter 36. Once again, 157d refers. The Assyrians were so confident that they uttered blasphemy against God at the walls of Jerusalem. God was not mocked, and he brings all to fruition in accordance with his plan and his own time, according to his calendar. The text in 2 Kings chapter 18 to 20 is much repeated in Isaiah chapter 37 to 40. Some of the text is not repeated in Isaiah, and so the text in 2 Kings 19 is used over Isaiah 38. We see from the text in Isaiah 37 and 2 Kings 19 that the prophecy concerning what is to happen to Judah is broken into two parts. See especially 2 Kings 19, 1 to 19 in this text. Hezekiah was obedient enough to place his faith in God and ask for deliverance, and God answered him. The text also continues in 2 Kings 19, 20 to 28. Here we see God answering Assyria and speaking concerning the virgin daughter of Zion. This is the church of the Messiah that is being spoken about. What virgin daughter of Zion existed before 28 CE? The virgin was to conceive and bear a child, as we know from Isaiah, and the child was Messiah. God then gives the sign for the virgin daughter of Zion. 2 Kings 19, 29 to 31 continues on regarding the sign given regarding the surviving remnant of the house of Judah. Here we're seeing God declare the timing and the purpose of the sign. In accordance with the calendar, at the end of the 2 years of the 7th Sabbath and the Jubilee year, the work was to be undertaken. In the 3rd year of the sequence, which was the 1st year after the Jubilee, the planting was to be undertaken and the fruit eaten. Then the surviving remnant would again take root downward. Now this was to be fulfilled in 2 ways. The restoration of Jerusalem and the law were undertaken by Ezra and Nehemiah at the Jubilee sequence, as we see from the text in Reading the Law with Ezra and Nehemiah, number 250. This was to point to the restoration under Messiah and the forming of the virgin daughter of Zion, which is the church of God, and the ultimate dispatch of the church into all lands. For out of Jerusalem shall go forth a remnant, and out of Jerusalem a band of survivors. Thus Christ could only have commenced his ministry in the 1st year after the Jubilee. We know that he declared the acceptable year of the Lord from the scroll of Isaiah in 27 CE, which was a Jubilee year, and he commenced his ministry after the imprisonment of John the Baptist, after Passover of 28 CE. See the paper Christ's Age at Baptism and the Duration of his Ministry, number 019. This sign could not be broken. Hezekiah had nothing to do with the remnant or the captivity. It was not done in his reign. See also the paper of the 7 Great Passovers of the Bible, number 107. The sign referred to Messiah and the establishment of the remnant after the Jubilee year. Messiah thus had to commence in the year following the Jubilee of 27 CE. We know from the New Testament text itself that he did not commence his ministry until after the Passover of 28 CE, after John the Baptist had been imprisoned. God purposes to send Jerusalem and Judah into captivity to Babylon and not to Assyria, as Assyria was about to fall, and the restoration had to take place under the Medes and Persians. If Judah had gone north of the Araxes, they could not have returned. There was no remnant during the reign of Hezekiah, as Jerusalem did not fall in his lifetime, and not to the Assyrians. After the purpose of the prophecy had been declared by God through Isaiah, the message then turned to what God was to do with the Assyrians. The text in 2 Kings 19:32 to 37 then concerns the king of Assyria and the slaying of 185,000 Assyrians attacking Jerusalem, causing them to return home. The time frame of verses 36 to 37 covers 20-odd years from the king's return to his eventual death, as described. It was prophecy that the Assyrians would not take Jerusalem, nor come near them again, and they did not do so. The next sequence in 2 Kings 20, verses 1 to 3 and 12 to 21, concerns the remainder of the life of Hezekiah and the actual details of the captivity of Judah to the Babylonians, and for this we compare 2 Kings 20, with Isaiah 38. Chapter 37, beginning in verse 1. When King Hezekiah heard it, he rent his clothes and covered himself with sackcloth and went to the house of the Lord. And he sent Eliakim, who was over the household, and Shebna, the secretary, and the senior priest, clothed with sackcloth, to the prophet Isaiah, the son of Amos. And they said to him, Thus saith Hezekiah, This day is a day of distress, of rebuke, and of disgrace. Children have come to the birth, and there is no strength to bring them forth. It may be that the Lord your God heard the word of the Rabshakeh, whom his master, the king of Assyria, has sent to mock the living God, and will rebuke the words which the Lord your God has heard. Therefore lift up your prayer for the remnant that is left. And when the servants of King Hezekiah came to Isaiah, Isaiah said to them, Say to your master, Thus saith the Lord, Do not be afraid because of the words that you have heard, with which the servants of the king of Assyria have reviled me. Behold, I will put a spirit in him, so that he shall hear a rumour, and return to his own land, and I will make him fall by the sword in his own land. The Rabshakeh returned and found the king of Assyria fighting against Libnah, for he had heard that the king had left Lachish. Now the king heard concerning Tirhakah, the king of Ethiopia. He had set out to fight against you. And when he heard it, he sent messengers to Hezekiah, saying, Thus shall you speak to Hezekiah, king of Judah. Do not let your God on whom you rely deceive you by promising that Jerusalem will not be given into the hand of the king of Assyria. Behold, you have heard what the kings of Assyria have done to all lands, destroying them utterly. And shall you be delivered? Have the gods of the nations delivered them? The nations which my fathers destroyed? Gozan, Haran, Rezeph, and the people of Eden who were in Tel Assar. Where is the king of Hamath, the king of Arpad, the king of the city of Sepharvaim, the king of Hena, or the king of Ivah? Hezekiah received a letter from the hand of the messengers and read it, and Hezekiah went up to the house of the Lord and spread it before the Lord. And Hezekiah prayed to the Lord, O Lord of hosts, God of Israel, who art enthroned above the cherubim. Thou art the God, thou alone of all the kingdoms of the earth. Thou hast made heaven and earth. Incline thy ear, O Lord, and hear. Open thy eyes, O Lord, and see. And hear all the words of Sennacherib, which he has sent to mock the living God. Of a truth, O Lord, the kings of Assyria have laid waste all the nations, and their lands, and have cast their gods into the fire. For they were no gods, but the work of men's hands, wood and stone. Therefore they were destroyed. So now, O Lord our God, save us from his hand, that all the kingdoms of the earth may know that thou alone art the Lord. And then Isaiah the son of Amos sent to Hezekiah, saying, Thus saith the Lord, the God of Israel, because you have prayed to me concerning Sennacherib, king of Assyria, this is the word that the Lord has spoken concerning him. She despises you, she scorns you, the virgin daughter of Zion. She wags her head behind you, the daughter of Jerusalem. Whom have you mocked and reviled? Against whom have you raised your voice and haughtily lifted your eyes? Against the Holy One of Israel. By your servants you have mocked the Lord, and you have said, With my many chariots I have gone up the heights of the mountains, to the far recesses of Lebanon. I felled its tallest cedars, its choicest cypresses. I came to its remotest height, its densest forest. I dug wells and drank waters, and I dried up with the sole of my foot all the streams of Egypt. Have you not heard that I determined it long ago? I planned from days of old what now I bring to pass, that you should make fortified cities crash into heaps of ruins, while their inhabitants, shorn of strength, are dismayed and confounded, and have become like plants of the field, and like tender grass, like grass on the housetops, blighted before it is grown. I know you are sitting down and you're going out and coming in, and you're raging against me. Because you have raged against me and your arrogance has come to my ears, I will put my hook in your nose and my bit in your mouth, and I will turn you back on the way by which you came. And this shall be the sign for you this year. Eat what grows of itself, and in the second year what springs of the same. Then in the third year sow and reap and plant vineyards and eat their fruit. And the surviving remnant of the house of Judah shall again take root downward and bear fruit upward. For out of Jerusalem shall go forth a remnant, and out of Mount Zion a band of survivors. The zeal of the Lord of hosts will accomplish this. Therefore thus saith the Lord concerning the king of Assyria, he shall not come into this city, or shoot an arrow there, or come before it with a shield, or cast up a siege mound against it. By the way that he came, by the same he shall return, and he shall not come into this city, saith the Lord. For I will defend this city and save it for my own sake, and for the sake of my servant David. And the angel of the Lord went forth, and slew 185,000 in the camp of the Assyrians. And when men arose early in the morning, behold, they were all dead bodies. Then Sennacherib king of Assyria departed, and went home, and dwelt at Nineveh. And as he was worshipping in the house of Nisroch his god, Adremelech and Sharezer his sons slew him with the sword, and escaped into the land of Ararat. And Esarhaddon his son reigned in his stead. Intent of chapter 37. 37, 1 to 35. Hezekiah consults Isaiah. See 2 Kings chapter 19. 37, 1. Clothes rent, sackcloth. Signs of mourning and despair. See 15 verse 3. Joel chapter 2 verse 12. For recourse to the temple in national crisis, see Nehemiah chapter 9, Joel 1 verses 13 to 14. Verse 2. Earlier kings consulted the prophet, hence Hezekiah's embassy to Isaiah. See 1 Kings 22 verses 8 to 28, 2 Kings 1 verses 9 to 17, and chapter 3 verses 11 to 27. 37, 5 to 7. Isaiah's reply reassures Hezekiah. The rumour was of internal problems at home in Assyria. 37, 8 to 20. This was Sennacherib's second challenge to Hezekiah around 688 to 687 BCE, perhaps in a later attack on Jerusalem. Verse 8. Libnah, 10 miles north of Lachish. Verse 9, Tirhakah, 2 Kings 19:9. Verse 12, places in Mesopotamia, Gozan on the west tributary of the Kabul River, east of Haran, Haran on the upper Balik River, Genesis 11:27 to 32. Reseph between Nineveh and northern Kabul, Eden, Bit Adini on the middle Euphrates. See Ezekiel 27:23. Talassa also in the middle Euphrates. Verse 14, letter, that is a scroll. Verse 16, enthroned, temple imagery, also in 1 Kings 8:6 to 7, Ezekiel 1:4 to 28. Verses 17 to 20, recalling Sennacherib's claim in verses 11 to 13. No God, see Jeremiah 10:1 to 16. Verse 21, see verses 33 to 35. 37, verses 22 to 29. Isaiah's challenge to Sennacherib, 10:5 to 19. 22 to 29, Isaiah here taunts Sennacherib by reminding him that he has defied God, who determines history's course, and he is to frustrate Sennacherib's purpose and plan. Verses 27 to 28 reads with the Dead Sea Scroll of Isaiah, housetops which is parched by the east wind. You're rising and you are sitting down, I know. See also the OARSV note. Verse 27 with 2 Kings 19 to 26, Hebrew field. 37:30 to 32, a second assurance to Hezekiah, see verses 5 to 7. The sign will be a return to normal conditions by the third year, considered to belong between verses 35 and 36, see the OARSV note. Remnant, see 10 verse 22 in the note. 37, 33 to 35. Third assurance to Hezekiah, compare verse 21. Verse 35 recalls Nathan's words to David, 2 Samuel 7, 12 to 17. 37 verses 36 to 38. Devastation of Sennacherib's army. Here the angel of the Lord went into the camp of the Assyrians and slew 185,000 of the Assyrians. Modern scholars say that it is a euphemism for a plague, by reference to the text in Exodus 12:29 and 2 Samuel 24 verses 15 to 17. See the OARSV note to that effect. The text does say, messenger of the Lord. Chapter 38, beginning in verse 1. In those days Hezekiah became sick and was at the point of death. And Isaiah the prophet, the son of Amos, came to him and said to him, Thus saith the Lord, set your house in order, for you shall die, you shall not recover. Then Hezekiah turned his face to the wall and prayed to the Lord and said, Remember now, O Lord, I beseech thee, how I walked with thee in faithfulness and with a whole heart, and have done what is good in thy sight. And Hezekiah wept bitterly. Then the word of the Lord came to Isaiah, Go and say to Hezekiah, Thus saith the Lord, the God of David your father, I have heard your prayer, and I have seen your tears. Behold, I will add 15 years to your life, and I will deliver you and this city out of the hand of the king of Assyria, and defend this city. This is the sign to you from the Lord, that the Lord will do this thing that he has promised. Behold, I will make the shadow cast by the declining sun, and the dial of Ahaz turned back 10 steps. So the sun turned back on the dial the 10 steps by which it had declined. The writing of Hezekiah, king of Judah, after he had been sick and had recovered from his sickness. I said, In the noontide of my days I must depart. I am consigned to the gates of Sheol for the rest of my years. I said, I shall not see the Lord in the land of the living. I shall look upon man no more among the inhabitants of the world. My dwelling is plucked up and removed from me like a shepherd's tent. Like a weaver I have rolled up my life. He cuts me off from the loom. From day to night thou dost bring me to an end. I cry for help until morning. Like a lion he breaks all my bones. From day to night thou dost bring me to an end. Like a swallow or a crane I clamour. I moan like a dove. My eyes are weary with looking upward. O Lord, I am oppressed. Be thou my security. But what can I say? For he has spoken to me, and he himself has done it. All my sleep has fled because of the bitterness of my soul. O Lord, by these things men live, and in all these things is the life of my spirit. Restore me to health, and make me live. Lo, it was for my welfare that I had great bitterness, but thou hast held back my life from the pit of destruction. For thou hast cast all my sins behind thy back. For Sheol cannot thank thee, death cannot praise thee. Those who go down to the pit cannot hope for thy faithfulness. The living he thanks thee, as I do this day. The Father makes known to the children thy faithfulness. The Lord will save me, and we will sing to stringed instruments all the day of our life at the house of the Lord. Now Isaiah has said, Let them take a cake of figs and apply it to the boil, that he may recover. Hezekiah also had said, What is the sign that I shall go up to the house of the Lord? Intent of chapter 38, verses 1 to 4, Hezekiah's illness and recovery, compared 2 Kings 20, verses 4 to 11. Verse 3, the form of Hezekiah's prayer for recovery is found in the Psalms, compare Psalm 6. Verse 8, the dial is literally stairs or steps, following the text of one ancient Hebrew manuscript found in the Dead Sea Scrolls. It may be translated, behold, I shall turn back the shadow of my steps, which the sun has moved on the steps of the roof chambers of Ahaz your father. I will cause the sun to move backwards 10 steps, and the sun move back on the steps down, which the shadow had descended. See the OARSV note. 38 verses 9 to 20. This song, traditionally ascribed to Hezekiah, is a liturgical thanksgiving for use when presenting a thank offering in the temple, personal deliverance. Psalm 32, 1 Samuel 2, verses 1 to 10, Jonah 2, verses 2 to 9. See also the OARSV note. Verse 9, writing, Hebrew miktam, read miktam, as in Psalms 56 to 60, F019, part 2. Verse 16, A and B, is based on a corrupted text, the Hebrew of which is uncertain. It probably should be amended to read, O Lord, with thee is the days of my life. Thine alone is the life of my spirit. See also the OARSV note to that effect. Verse 17. Here we see God's saving power is demonstrated in recovery from illness, demonstrated as forgiveness of sin, from Luke 5, 17 to 26. 38 verses 21 to 22. These verses are considered to belong between verses 6 to 7. And you see that canvassed in the OARSV note. What follows are Bullinger's comments on chapters 34 to 38 for those using the KJV.